Now, okay, students, now we continue to the division and the multiplication properties of equality. In this thing, well, you basically got the main concept when you were adding and subtracting the same number on the same side of the equal sign. In this case, now you're going to see situations where the variable is being divided or is being multiplied. So let's go ahead and start with the division property of equality. The division property of equality states that two sides of an equation remain equal when you divide each side by the same non-zero number. Remember that the denominators cannot be zero. So in this case, we have A equals to some expression B. So that, and if C does not equal 0, then the expression A divided by some number is going to be equal to the expression B divided by the same number. Then that will give you another true statement. Okay, so let's go ahead and do an example for that. Okay, for example, if you have 2x equals 10, okay? In this case, if you look at the side where the variable is at, you know that the variable here is being multiplied by 2. In this situation, you can use the division property of equality to isolate the variable and get rid of this 2. Since this is multiplication, you do the opposite operation, which means that if you divide this out by 2, and the division property of equality tells you if you do it to both sides the exact same thing, then you should get another true statement. In this case, you can see that 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then you bring down the x. Well, this is by itself, you just write x. In this case, you do the actual operation. 10 divided by 2 is 5. That means that for every x, the value is 5. And you can check it here. If you take this number and you substitute it in here for x, 2 times 5 is 10. Which means that 10 is equal to 10? Yes. And that's how you would check it. This is another true statement because you did the same thing to both sides, but you did it to isolate the variable. Okay? And now for the multiplication property of equality. The multiplication property of equality states that two sides of an equation remain equal if you multiply each side by the same number. If you multiply by the same number. Okay, in this case now we have an expression A equal to some expression B. Then if you multiply A times some number C, that will equal B times some number C. So as you can see, if you multiply both sides by the same number, you should get another true statement. For example, now let's say here, we're going to use Z now, for example. C divided by 3 equals 10. Okay, so in this case, if you look on the side where the variable is, you know that C is being divided by 3. Well, in order to undo this division by 3, now you can use the multiplication property of equality. For example, since they're dividing by 3, you can multiply by 3 on both sides. Make sure you use parentheses because this indicates multiplication. Well, since this is being divided by 3 and this is being multiplied by 3, this basically cancels out because 3 divided by 3 is 1. So you get whatever's left over and you bring it down, which would only be the Z. Then you bring down your equal sign, then you actually perform this operation. 10 times 3 is 30. So then you can say that this is a true statement because we did the same thing to both sides of the equation. Okay, this maintains a balance of equality. So that means that Z equals 30. So if you substitute this in here for Z, so 30 divided by 3 is 10, which equals 10. So this is another true statement, but in this case the variable is isolated. So that's what you want to do. Have the variable all by itself. All right, so let's do 2 examples so you can understand this better. Solve each equation, represent the solution on the number line, check your solution. Okay, solve this equation, meaning you're going to solve for the variable. represent the solution on the number line. And then check your solution. Okay? Simple enough. So if you take a look at your expression, always you're going to analyze what you're looking at. This is an equation. You know that the variable is on the left side. You know that a number and a variable means multiplication. So in this case, -8 times y. Y is being multiplied by -8. The way you can undo that, since it's being multiplied by -8, then you can do division. You can use the division property of equality. And if you take a look at here what they did, you got -8. If you divide by -8 on both sides, you should get another true statement. In this case, -8 divided by -8 is equal to 1, which means that these two fit into each other once and you end up with one variable. Okay, there's one way of writing it. This would be the way you would write it, one way. But since you already know that there is one y, then it's not necessary to write the 1 anymore. So then in this case, now you do the actual operation. 24 divided by -8. Well, if you remember the rules of dividing integers, you know that a positive divided by a negative gives you a negative number. And then just perform the operation. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So in this case, the solution for -8 times y equals 24 is -3. So if the solution is -3, and you put it on the number line, this will be -3 there, then a couple of numbers to the right, a couple of numbers to the left. Now to check it, you would, like once again, you would take your solution and you will substitute it back into for the variable in the original equation. In this case, they already did it for you. But let me go ahead and simplify it a little bit for you. This is -8 times y equals 24. So what they did is that they just substituted the 3 in for the y. So -8 times -3, that in itself is positive 24, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And 24, we know that is equal to 24, which is a true statement. Okay, now let's do one more example. Okay, if you take a look at this example, and you notice that your variable is on the left side, and you know, and you could see here that it's being divided by -4. Well, if it's being divided by -4 and we want to undo this so that the a can end up by itself, since it's being divided by -4, you can use the multiplication property of equality. So as you can see here, they're multiplying in parentheses here by -4, because this will cancel each other out. So you do it to both sides to maintain the balance. In this case, that cancels, and you end up with a. And now you perform the operation. A negative times a negative gives you a positive. 9 times 4 is 36. So your solution for a is 36. Now to check it, you would substitute once again, right? Here it's 36 divided by, never mind, 36 divided by -4 is -9, and that equals -9, and you have another true statement. Okay, this would have been your y divided by -4 equals -9. Okay, so go ahead and do the got it problems by yourself by looking at the examples, and then you'll be ready to solve more problems like this, real world problems, tomorrow during class. Thank you.